an artist and an art teacher. I love to explore art techniques and technology techniques and then share them with you. In the past, I made a video showing you how to use the basic tools to draw on Chrome Canvas, and I will put a link to that at the end and in the description. Today, I'm excited to show you how to draw realistically with Chrome Canvas. You are going to be drawing digitally, but the cool thing is by the time you're done, it's going to look like you drew it in pencil. So by the end of this video, you will know how to draw 5 geometric forms, how to shade them, how to think about where the light is coming from, where the shadow is going, and how to draw and shade three-dimensional forms. This video is good for artists, students, and art teachers. You can watch it with me in real time. You can draw along with me and stop it whenever you want to and then start again. You can speed it up whenever you'd like to. I'm also going to put the timestamp links in the description so that you can go to each one of the 5 geometric forms. As you're watching my demonstration, you're going to notice that I'm using a handout that shows you how to draw three-dimensional forms step by step. I made that for my students. And if you think that it would be helpful for you, what I'll do is put a link for that down in the description. It'll be free and you can just go down, click on it, and then you can have a copy for yourself as you're working. And hopefully that'll be useful for you. I hope that you're gonna love this. I have enjoyed it so much and my students loved it. They said, in fact, that they wished I had showed them even earlier how to do it. So I hope you enjoy it as much as we have. And if you found it useful or you did enjoy it, please like, share, comment, and subscribe. So without further ado, let's get going. We're gonna go to Chrome Canvas. All right, so to get started, we're gonna go to Chrome Canvas in Google, and you can do that by just saying Chrome Canvas, and you'll see it pop up first. Click on it, and it always saves everything that you've done in the past. So here are some of the things that I've done in the past. I also have a Chrome Canvas through my school account. This is through my personal one. To get started, we're gonna hit the blue button that says New Drawing. And now we have a blank canvas. And remember, I did an intro that showed you how to use all the different tools, so we're just gonna jump in, but you can link at the end to the video that shows you how to use the different tools. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna use the pencil tool and the charcoal tool for drawing and shading. We're also going to refer to these step-by-step instructions that I made for my students that you can link to in the description and then have to refer to as you are working. So to get started, we are going to draw the cone, and if you see on the step-by-step instructions, the first step is to draw the top of a triangle and then to add a smiley face curve to it. So when we get started to draw, we don't want a very dark line, so we're going to choose the pencil, but we're going to choose the opacity about 50. It does not have to be perfect, but about 50% opacity, so it's not too light, not too dark. So first we are going to draw a top of a triangle, and then we are going to draw a smiley face to connect it. Now we are going to draw this line, and that is going to be where our sunshine is coming from, or our light source. And if our light source is coming from that direction, our shadow is going to go in the same direction. All right, so we drew the cone, and now we are going to shade it. To shade it, we are going to use the charcoal tool, and it's really important that we have a sort of small size, so I like to do 13, and then the opacity, we want it very light, so we're going to have that be 13 also. So the opacity is how light or dark it is, how much you can see through it, and we want it to be very light, so that when we draw, if you make one mark, it's light, but if you layer it, it gets darker and darker and darker. That's how we're going to shade. If you were using a real pencil, then you could just use the side of your pencil and do the same thing. For this to look like a pencil, we use a charcoal. Now I'm going to do some demonstrations on the right side so you can see why we're doing what we're doing. So if we have our triangle, our smiley face, and we have the light coming from up here, we are going to think of this almost like a value scale. If you've done a value scale, split into 4. The lightest side would be here because it's closest to the light. The darkest value would be here because it's farthest from the light, and then it would be in between on these levels. We don't want to actually have lines on it, but that's how you're going to think about where the light is. So here, I'm going to use that 13, and I am going to split it like I'm cutting a piece of pizza into 4 even parts. Then I am going to shade in this one nice and dark, so my darkest value, which for us is going to be a 4. But again, don't turn it up, just keep on layering until it's a nice dark value. If it goes outside, that's okay. And also you can zoom in by taking your fingers and moving them away from each other, and that will let you zoom in. So kind of scribble that in, make sure it's pointy at the top and wider at the bottom so that it's following the form. And again, if you go outside the line, it's okay because you can erase that. Okay. The right side is the lightest value, so you don't actually do anything. The next one, you just put in a little bit, hardly anything, just kind of put in a little bit. And then the third one, the one in between, you make a middle value. So you want it to be darker than the second one, but not as dark as the last one. So it's going to look a little stripy, which is not what we want in the end, but that's going to help us make sure that we have our different values from light to dark. And these values of shading are what's going to make it look like it is really reacting in real space to light and shadow. All right. So now we have our dark, our medium, our light, and our white, but it's stripy. We don't want it to be striped. We don't want hard edges, so we want it to have a gradation. The way we are going to do that is by making little marks, little swirls like this, but we're going to do them close together like this, right on the line. So I'm making little swirly, swoopy marks right on the line, and I'm going to keep on doing that until you can't see that heavy line anymore, that heavy separation. So wherever you see a real dark line, just go over the center of the line with your little swoopy marks. I'm going to do the same thing on this lighter line here. Just going to gently go over it. And this is how we get it to gradually go from dark to light. I am also going to try turning down that opacity even more, and then do the swirls on the side so that it even more gradually goes from very, very light to white. I think that looks good. All right, I'm going to use the eraser, which is just below the charcoal, just to clean up the edge where I went outside the line. There we go. And now I'm going to go back to full size for a minute, and I am going to draw the shadow. Now the shadow goes in the same direction as this arrow, but we don't want a hard outline. So we're not going to use the pencil. We're going to use that charcoal at 13% again, which is our regular opacity. And I think I will go ahead and erase this arrow just so that it doesn't accidentally become part of our drawing. And I'm going to look, and if the light is coming from this way, that means that's the same direction that the shadow is going to go. So this way. So what it's going to be is, here is the point, and then it's going to go to where the light would be stopped by the cone on both sides. The shadow is going to be a little darker closer to the object because the object will block more of the light closer to the table that it's sitting on. So we have kind of a medium shadow, and then just go over it a little bit more as you get closer to where the object would be sitting on the table. Now, there's two more things we're going to do to make this look even more realistic. One thing is, where an object touches the table, there's a little tiny shadow where it actually has a tiny gap below the cone that's creating a tiny, tiny shadow, which is pretty dark. So I'm going in, and don't think of it as a line. Think of it as a shadow that's sitting underneath your cone. And it's darker than most of the rest of your shadow. But don't use the pen on this, use your pencil. You could maybe turn your pencil up a little bit for this. Let's see how that looks. Yep, that looks good. Then the last thing we're going to do is we want it to really look like it's sitting on a table or on an object. So we're going to make a horizon line, which is horizontal. That's where the word comes from. So we're going to start somewhere touching the object and go horizontally in one direction, and then we're going to pretend it's going behind the object and going horizontally in the opposite direction. And now it looks like it is sitting on a table. So that's the horizon line, and that is a cone. We could go ahead and write the word cone. And there we go. We've got a cone with a horizon line. So now you know how to draw a realistic cone. You know how to draw it, how to shade it, how to pay attention to the values of light and dark. You know how to make it look like it's on a real table by drawing the contact shadow and the horizon line. Now we're going to do the same thing with a pyramid. So let's get started. So we're done with our cone, and we're going to make a new drawing now. So we're going to go up to the little house shape on the left where it says back to gallery. Tap on that and create a new drawing. So we're going to go to the blue button, click new drawing, and now we have a blank new canvas. Now we're going to draw a pyramid, so let's look at the steps. The first step is to draw a triangle. The second one is to draw a diagonal line up, and then draw a line from the top of the triangle down to the diagonal line. We are again going to use a pencil to draw it, and we're going to make sure that it is at 50%, which it is. And we're going to go ahead and draw our triangle, step 1. And also remember that it's supposed to look like it's drawn by hand, so don't think that it needs to be absolutely perfect. I'm going to make the bottom of this horizontal, and then I'm going to do my diagonal line up. So it's going up and to the right. Then I'm going to take a line from the top and connect it to that line. Like that. Now I'm going to imagine again that the light is coming from this direction. So that means that our shadow is going to be coming from that same direction. All right, now with a pyramid, this is not a curved surface like the cone was, so we're going to shade it a little bit differently. The side that is flat and furthest away from the light source is just going to be all the way dark. So we're going to make that very dark. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's go ahead and zoom in. Fill that in. And again, It is better to keep it at about a 13. And again, we can erase it as we need to, but it's better to keep it at a 13 opacity so that it has the feel of a real pencil and layering the graphite. Even though it's really a charcoal tool, I think it acts like drawing with the side of your pencil. I've actually had students use these same instructions and were having some kind of technology issue, so they did it with their pencil instead and got similar results. Then they photographed it and sent it to me instead of having it online. So I'm filling it in, and paper has texture, which is what I like about this charcoal tool, is it feels like it is a pencil on textured paper. You can kind of see that texture as it goes, which is why you want to do the little swirly marks, go over it a few times. And I might go a bit darker, but let's call that good for now. I might get a little bit more right here. Now, the thing to think about, and I can erase this little extra bit here. That's too much. Now we have our light that's coming from this direction. Going back to my charcoal, this part of this side triangle is further away than the back side of the triangle. So I'm gonna make it just a tiny bit darker, not too much. The whole thing's gonna be pretty light. So I'm gonna use little swirling motions to gradually make it a little darker further away. And then very light towards the edges. It's not gonna be a lot. Maybe a little bit darker here towards the corner that's the farthest away. I'm going to call that good. Go ahead and clean up at the bottom. If you're my student, you're going to check with me between each step so I can make sure you're on track, that you know if there's anything to think about, and it won't take but a second. So now I have it shaded. I do think I could make it a little bit darker on this side because we really want it to be dark, kind of like the darkest part of the cone from our last drawing. So I'm going to go ahead and darken this up just a little bit more. And you're going to be tempted to turn it up and make it black, but don't do it. Do it slowly, little by little, and it's really going to start to feel like you did it with a pencil. I was so excited to learn about Chrome Canvas and the possibility of teaching drawing with it. All right, I think that's good right there. Okay, so now our shadow is a little different than the cone because the shadow is going to be here. It's going to start at this corner, and that's because that's where the light would start to be blocked. It's going to come here to the center, and then it's going to go a little bit past the corner here because the back left corner of the pyramid would also block out a little bit of light. So here we start where the point would be, and we go to the corner. And here we do the same thing, but instead of going straight to the corner, we go a little bit past it. You can see it's not much, and I'll zoom in here. Just a little bit past it. And then just like with the cone, fill it in, kind of a medium darkness at first. Use your little swirling pattern so you don't get stripes of shadow on it. Zoom in whenever it feels like that would be good to do, which is usually always. Zooming in makes everything easier digitally. And then I'm going to make it a little darker again, closer to where the object is touching the table, because it would block out even more light closer to the object. Less light would be escaping around the pyramid there. Make it a little bit darker, kind of in the center, near it. Okay. And then, just like with the cone, I'm going to take my pencil and make a contact shadow. And I might turn it up a little bit, but not too much. Maybe just a little tiny bit. And again, don't think of it as outlining it. Think of it as a little tiny shadow that's underneath the pyramid. Maybe even a little light peeks around the corner there at the bottom. And then same thing here. We got a little bit of a shadow underneath here. It's not going to be as noticeable because it's already dark there, but it's there. And that's letting people know it's really reacting with the space around it. Now, some people think that since we did it on these two sides, we should do it on the other side, but we should not, because it's just where it's touching the table, and the side here is not touching the table, so there would be no line there. So we just have our little shadow where it touches the table, and that's all. And then I think you know what your next step is going to be. It's going to be to draw the horizon line. Now I had turned my opacity for my pencil up a little bit. I'm going to take it back down to that 50-ish, somewhere around there. And then I'm going to, again, make a horizon line. So I'm going to start where it's touching the object so that it looks like it's coming from behind it. And you could go all the way across the page depending on what you're drawing. And then again, skip, start on the other side. And there we have our here. And you can go ahead and sign your name if you want to. Okay, so we did it. We drew the cone, we drew the pyramid, we know about drawing and shading both of them and how to pay attention to light and dark and shadow. And now we're going to draw the cylinder. All right, so here we go. We're about to do the cylinder. We're going to click New Drawing, and we're going to look at our instructions. So if you see, the first step is to draw an ellipse, a horizontal ellipse. Then we're going to draw 2 lines to the outside of the ellipse, and I'll show you what to do and what not to do on that, and then a smiley face curve at the bottom of that. So we're going to go to Canvas and make sure that our pencil is at about 50%, which it is. And we are going to draw an ellipse. So if you don't get it perfect the first time, if it doesn't look even, you can just even it out. It might take you a few times to get your ellipse even, and that's fine. Remember, it's important to have fun, and it is important for it to look like a human drew it and not a machine. So again, I did this a few different times before I thought that it looked how I wanted it to. Yeah, I think that's pretty good. I'm pretty happy with it. Now I'm going to show you the next step. Yeah, I'm going to what do you guys think? Does that look even? Pretty even? We'll go with it. Now I'm going to show you what not to do. So the first step is to put 2 straight lines, and let's go back and look at it, down on the outside of the ellipse. So what some people accidentally do is they put it on the inside. But that is not going to look like a cylinder. Okay, so do not do that. You want it to be on the outside, as far out as it can be on both sides. That's where your line is going to start, here and here. So when I do it, I'm going to think, okay, what's the farthest out that I can go? That's where I'm going to start. And then I'm going to go straight down. And again, farthest out, straight down. And if it's not wonderfully straight and you want to redo it, you can. See how it goes? I think that's pretty good. Now I want to make sure that this at the bottom is even, because I want these to be the same size. So I'm just going to kind of go like this with my eraser just to make sure they're even on the bottom. And they are pretty good. Now, what some people do, and I'll use this what not to do one again, is they just draw a straight line across the bottom. That is not what a three-dimensional cylinder would look like, and I'll show you why. That would look like a bag of chips, maybe. Something flat on the bottom. We want it to look rounded, so this same angle that we have on our ellipse at the top, we want the exact same one on the bottom. So I'm going to try to match this exact same little swoop of a smiley face from here. We want it the exact same way, so we're going to swoop down, and then swoop back up. And it looks to me like maybe I should have come down a little bit more here, so I'm going to come down like that. And then erase my little extra. There we go. So now we've got our cylinder, and now we are going to draw our light again. And our light is going to come from here. All right. So this is sort of a combination of the pyramid and the cone, because there's flat parts and there's curved parts. So we're going to think about this again in terms of being split into 4, like we did with the cone. But this time, since our sides of our cylinder are vertical, so will our lines be. So the side on the right-hand side closest to the light is going to be white. And guess what? The side on the opposite side is going to be as dark as we can make it. But again, keep it at that 13% and fill it in. I'm going to zoom in a little bit more again for this. And it's okay if you go outside the lines, because you can erase them later. But right now we want this little stripe to be as dark as we can make it. And I will erase the part at the top after I'm done making this nice and dark. I'm using little swirlies to get it all filled in. And we can go back in and darken it again a little bit in a little while, but that's pretty good, pretty nice and dark. I'm gonna go ahead with my eraser and just clean up this little bit here. I'll show you what to do with that part in a second. Not too far. Just Control Z anytime you want to undo something that you already did. It erases the last step. It undoes the last step. There we go. Okay. Now go back to here, and again, this stripe closest to the white one is going to be very light. So we don't want a lot of shading, just a little bit, just kind of touch everything with it. And then again, in between those, a medium value, so a middle value of shading in here. And at first, just like with the pyramid, we will have stripes of values, and then we'll use our swirling shading in between to make it so that everything has a smooth gradation from light to dark, and then you can't see that change anymore. Because that is what would happen in real life also. My light, I've got my medium. It looks like I need to fill in the dark area a little bit more, so I'm going to fill that in. Again, even if you're tempted, don't turn up your opacity. And then I have a little bit of a gap of white space here, so I'm going to fill that in with my medium, which lets me see that I need to just darken out my dark side a little bit more. Okay, it's already kind of blending, but I'm going to go in and use the swirls anywhere where I can see a part where the light shifts quickly, the value shifts. So same thing here, a little bit of swirls. So you can't see that sudden change from medium to dark. Or medium to light. And then a little tiny bit of swirls just to gradually get to the light area. And then I see that I need a little bit here because there's a little light area that kind of sticks out to me. And then I did like how it went when I turned it down even more, just to get a little bit of a gradual shift from the very, very light to the white. All right, so now the only thing we have to shade on the cone is the top part. And the way that's going to work, we're going to go back to 13, don't forget that. So just like the side of the pyramid, we want the part that's closest to it to be white, the part that's further away a little darker, but not too much darker because it's still up there close to the light. So we're just going to make the part furthest away a little bit darker, and then just let it fade to light. And I did like how the light area faded, so I think I'll do the same thing here. Just so you don't notice when it stops. There. I like it. Let's take a look. Maybe a tiny bit darker over here. But again, it is at the top. It's getting a lot of light, so it's never going to be as dark as the backside. All right, now we are going to do our shadow. And our shadow goes in the same direction. Boom. So if this is this way, that means that's the direction our shadow is going to go. But this has straight lines, not diagonal like the cone or the pyramid. So our lines are going to start about here and come at a straight line, and then again at a straight line. So straight 45-degree angle. So it's going to start about here, like a 45-degree angle, about just like the arrow, and another one. They're going to be parallel to each other. Then this is going to be a curve because it's round at the top. So the top of that cylinder is going to be curved. And then we're going to fill it in, and that is very much like everything else. So we're going to fill it in, swirl so we don't have stripes on our shadows. And then let it get a little darker as it gets closer. The shadow does go right out there to the edge of the cylinder. Darker, closer to it. Swirls to blend everything. And zoom in, do our little contact shadow, and if you look at objects, pay attention to things sitting on tables, you'll start to notice that little shadow. And I'm not going all the way to the edge of it because there might be a little bit of light seeping in where the back edge of it is. So I'm leaving just a little bit of a gap. I'm not going to go up the side of it because it's only where it touches the table. Then I'll do my horizon line. Make sure it's even with the other side so it looks like it's coming from behind it. And there we go. Now we have a cylinder. Okay, y'all, so we are getting there. We did the cone, we did the pyramid, we did the cylinder. They look awesome. We're doing a great job. Now we have two more. We have the cube and we have the sphere. So we're going to do the cube. I think you'll find that it has a lot of similarities with the other ones we've already done. And then after that, we'll do our last one, which is the sphere. So let's get started. We're going to do the cube, and here we go. Right, we click the home button up on the left and we click new drawing again, and we are going to draw the cube. So to draw a cube, we're going to follow these 4 steps, and I will go through them with you as we go. But the first one is just to draw a square. So let's go ahead and do that. We are going to use our pencil. We're going to make sure that it's at 50, which it is, and we're going to draw our best square. So here we go. And again, it's okay if it's not 100% perfect because we are doing our best and we are enjoying the process. And if you see there's a little wobble, you can just adjust it and then carry on with your life. If you're my student, then I'll be showing you in class how to solve problems and get things how you want them to, but everybody else, just do your best. And if you want to erase parts, you can. If you want to try it a few times, you can. I usually try a few times until I like how it looks. So our next step is to draw diagonal lines up parallel like this. So we're going to draw 45-degree angle lines up from the 2 sides and from the top here. That one's a little wobbly, so I just Control Z. All right, now the next step is going to be to draw a vertical line, and I can see now if I wanted it to be a rectangular prism instead of a square, it would be fine to leave the lines a little bit long, but I want mine to be a square, so I'm going to start here and draw a perfectly vertical line down. And then I'll just erase the extra parts that stick out. And then I am going to draw a line from this corner, perfectly horizontal, parallel with the top of my square, like that, and then just erase the extra. And here I am going to take the time to show you a couple things not to do that can end up in sadness, in square sadness. So if you have your square, and it's wonderful, and a couple things that people sometimes do that are not correct is, one, they have the 45-degree angles go all different directions, which would be good if you were drawing a hallway or a gem or something, but this is not what you want to do. Another thing that they sometimes do, and this is the what not to do. I actually have a couple of videos showing this also, if you want to check out my older ones where I'm drawing on paper. They sometimes get these 2 correct, but then forget and go that way. So don't do that either. But say you do have them all going in the same direction, but maybe one is a little, let's pretend that I made this one long and this one short on accident. So sometimes people think that the main important thing is to connect the ends of the lines, and it's not. And let me show you why. If I just connect my lines, do you see how it looks crooked? It doesn't quite look like a box, quite like a cube. And if I exaggerate that, I can show you even more. So say I do this line, and then I do this one, and the angles are right, but I make it a little bit too long. And then I just connect those lines. What I end up with is something that does not look like a cube. So it's very important, let's put little X marks on these. It's important that this line here is vertical and this line is horizontal. And if you have any extra line parts, don't worry about it, just erase that extra part like I did. All right, so now we're going to shade it. So our sunlight is coming from here, and our shadow is going in the same direction, bloop, down here. And again, just like the pyramid, this side is going to be the darkest because it's furthest away from the light, and it has square edges, 90-degree angles. There's really not going to be any light sliding around it. So we are going to just fill this in all the way dark. Let's zoom in so we can see what we're doing. And again, I'm zooming in by taking my fingers on the touchpad and then spreading them away from each other, and that makes my screen a little bit bigger. So I'm going to fill this in nice and dark. And if I go outside the lines, I just erase it. I'm not worried about it. Do my swirls. And again, this is very much like it. If you were using a pencil, and some of you might decide that you want to try it with pencil also, have a wooden pencil, not a mechanical pencil, a wooden pencil, and sharpen it till it's nice and sharp so that the graphite that's sticking out of it is very long. And that way you are going to use the side of the graphite and it's going to be wide. That's going to allow you to use this soft shading technique just like this. You don't want to shade with the tip of your pencil. Then you'd have lots of lines. Okay, we may go in and darken that up in a bit, but I'm liking this. All right, just clean this up just a little bit. And you'll notice that some of the next steps are going to seem pretty familiar to you. Okay. So again, our light's coming from this direction. So just like with our pyramid, it's going to be darker here, but since it's a vertical on the wall of the cube instead of at a diagonal like on the pyramid, I'm going to have this whole front side be a little darker and then have it gradually get darker. So I'm going to use more or less vertical shading. I'm still going to do my little swirlies, but kind of up and down so that it's darker towards the front and then gradually gets lighter as it gets closer to the light source. A little darker further away from it. And then the same thing as the top of our pyramid, I'm going to make, if this is where the light is, this corner is going to be a little lighter, and this corner, the opposite corner, is going to be a little darker, and then it's going to gradually get lighter. So I'm thinking of it in terms of diagonal lines because that's sort of the direction that the light is hitting it. So this area here is going to be a little bit darker. And again, not very dark because it is on the top. It's getting a lot of light. Maybe just like that. And I can play with that opacity like I did before, so it can fade out even more gradually there. Smooth it out a little bit, make it a little bit darker further away. And then I do think I will go back and darken the front a little bit, which you'll notice I tend to do. I'm just kind of getting that so it's noticeably darker than everything else. Because it is blocking out the light. There. I think that is a good cube. Now, just like the sides of the cylinder were straight and parallel, so will the cube. It's going to stop letting light by right here. So this is going to be the same angle as the light. And then on the back side, and I'm just going to draw in arrows to show you, on the back side, that corner would also block out light. So the shadow is going to start from behind that corner and come up. So the only tricky part of the shadow on the cube is going to be that the top parts of the box create a slightly different shape than you might think. So the top here is going to be parallel with the top of this shadow. So it's going to go horizontal just like the top of the cube. Then the side of the cube here, the side of the shadow is going to be vertical and then meet the edges. And then we fill it in medium everywhere. We make it a little darker as usual, closer to our object. Swirl to make everything blend together. Then we need our contact shadow. And again, there will be a little one on this side because it's cast by its own self. The cube itself has a little tiny shadow underneath it where it's touching the table, where just a tiny bit of light doesn't show through. And then same thing, a little bit up here, but not on the other side because it's only where it's touching the table. And the other side is going off the table, so we don't do it there. We get this nice and dark where it's hiding the most light. And again, don't use a pen, just keep using the layers of your pencil so that it feels like you're drawing with a pencil. All right, so do not do the side, but do the parts that are touching the table, and then make your horizon line. So over to the other side, and there you have your cube. All right, so we did it. We drew an awesome cube. It is drawn and shaded correctly, and now we're ready to do the sphere, which has some similarities and some differences from our other forms. So we're going to do that together. I'll walk you through it, and by the time you're done, you'll be able to draw all 5 of the forms and shade them realistically. And then also, if you have done that, you also can use these same skills with a wooden pencil on paper and try drawing them on paper as well. So you'll have to let me know if you try either one of those. But let's go ahead and start with the sphere. All right, so last but not least is the sphere. So we're going to start a new drawing. Click on the blue box, and you can see the directions for making a sphere. There's just one step: draw a circle. So we're going to do that. So that might seem simple, but sometimes it's hard to draw a circle. So I'm going to show you a few things to do. To draw the circle, I'm going to turn my opacity down a little bit, and I'm going to draw a circle, and it's probably not going to be a perfect circle right away. And then I can adjust it wherever it needs to be a little bit rounder. I can make it rounder. Wherever it needs to stick out or be smoothed out, I can do that. So I would just start first with, the best circle you can do, and then adjust it from there. That's how I do mine. You can try to draw a perfect circle from the get-go, and once in a while you'll be able to do it. But sometimes it doesn't quite turn into a circle right away. We want to get the feel for drawing our own. So I think that's pretty good. I'm pretty pleased. And if we were drawing on paper, I would also not have you trace a circular object. I would have you just practice drawing circles. There we go. I think that's all right. So now that's all we do. That was step 1. Now we're going to remember that our light is coming from this direction. It's going to be very important. And we're going to remember that I'm going to check, make sure I'm at 13%, which I am. Our shadow is going to go in that same direction. Now, a few things to remember and keep in mind about a sphere is, I'm going to draw a little extra one here. So when we think about where the light is coming from on this one here, this my little practice one, I want us to think about the curves that we've done, but the cone was curved, but it still had straight sides. This is curved in every direction, so there's no straight lines. So when you're shading your circle, you have the light. That's going to be the lightest area. But instead of doing straight sections, you are doing almost like little crescent moons. So you're gonna have curved lines that are going to show you where the light and dark are. But not only is the light going to be wrapping around it from this direction, but also like this. And of course, we don't want those lines to actually really be on it, but that's how we're going to kind of think about shading. This would be kind of like that. So that's kind of how our shading is going to happen, okay? So we're going to have, turn our opacity down again for the area that's closest to our light source. We'll still have 4 sections, almost like 4 crescent moon type shapes like that. The darkest part is going to be on the far side. The lightest is here, but also it's going to get lighter in these sections here. So we're going to go very dark in the middle. That's going to be very, very dark. And this is going to be very light. And then this is going to be medium. And then the dark is going to be very dark all the way around here, but it's going to get a little bit lighter as it gets to the edges of its curve. So it's still going to be shaded, but just not quite as much. And we can even it out more later, but that's the idea. And then the same thing here, it's going to be medium, but gradually get lighter as it goes up towards the outside part. So medium, but gradually lighter. Lets me see that my darkest part has to be a little bit darker again. Because drawing is really a series of adjustments always. But keep that kind of crescent moon shape idea in your head as you're working. And the part where it gets small, that's what feels like it's wrapping around the circle, and that's what's going to make it feel like a sphere instead of a circle. I'm going to go outside of the edges and clean that up later. Okay, then we've got our medium, and then we've got our very light. This is going to gradually get darker. We're going to use our scribble marks to make it all feel like it's blending together. We want to see the stripes because we want it to look like a very smooth surface sphere. And I'm going to really darken up this back side a lot. And I think bring in a little bit more of this shade up here. You see how that's starting to look like the shadow is wrapping around it. And it's pretty gradual. I'm going to do a little bit more gradual around the edges here. And then I'm going to turn it down, the opacity down to almost nothing, just to blend a little bit more where it turns into no shadow whatsoever, no value. There. Now I need my shadow. And I'm going to turn my opacity back to 13. A shadow from a sphere is different than other shadows. If I use my other one as an example, the shadow is not starting here, it's actually starting here. That's where the shadow is touching the table. So the shadow is going to be cast a little bit behind there because the curve of the sphere is going to cast it, and it's going to come here like that. That's about what it's going to be like. But it's going to be darkest where it's touching the table, which is right here. Okay? And since it's a circle, it doesn't have any hard defined edges. So the shadow edges are going to be very soft. But if we kind of think about this being where it's touching the table and the direction of the shadow still going like this 45-degree angle, we're going to have it be like this. And then we're going to fill it in all medium. And this shadow is going to have a few extra little steps to it. First, we'll do it like normal. Our medium shadow. And the shadow is going to be smooth, just like the sphere is smooth. We're going to make a darker shadow, still coming from that same direction behind it. And the center is going to be darker. Fade out. So it has sort of a little kernel, little nugget in the middle. Then we are going to a little darker, even more so, real close to it, and that's going to help us also see our sphere. Do you see how that kind of helps define the sphere? It's contrasting and letting us see the sphere against the shadow. Then we're going to use our pencil to create that contact shadow, but again, it's going to be right at the bottom here where it would actually be touching the table. So that's going to be our darkest part. So after you get that contact shadow done, there's one more thing that needs to be done for a sphere that you don't do for other forms. And that is, there is light bouncing around, and it bounces off of the table and makes a little reflection right near the bottom of the darkest area of your sphere. Our eraser tool is too much. It erases too much. So instead I'm going to use the pencil tool, but I'm going to change it up at the dot to white. So now my pencil's white, and I think I'll keep the opacity at 50 and turn my size up just a little bit. But now I'm going to use white. So instead of erasing, I'm adding white to it. And I'm making a little bit of light reflecting onto it, bouncing off the table. And kind of a little curve so that it's following the curve of the sphere. There we go. And then I'm going to go back to black, and I'm going to make sure I'm at 50%-ish, and I'm going to do my horizon line. The other side, and then I just realized I didn't clean up this little bit here, so I'll clean that up and looks too much. Gently clean that up and little arrow, and then I realized there's even just one more little spot there. I'm gonna get that, have a lovely sphere. So there you have it. You have your own project. Hopefully you enjoyed it and you learned a little bit about how to draw all 5 of the geometric forms and how to shade them realistically. I hope that you love the Chrome Canvas as much as I did. I love it. It's simple, it's easy to use, it automatically saves, and you can make drawings that look like they were actually drawn on a piece of paper. So if you do try it, let me know in the comments how it went, and if you have any questions, let me know there also. And please like, share, comment, and subscribe. Thank you all so much for stopping by. I hope you have a great day, and I love you. Bye.